Something happened on the mound between Shohei Ohtani and Dalton Rushing, and even if it was not a full-blown confrontation, it was still the kind of moment that instantly gets attention. In a game where every pitch matters and every sign exchanged between pitcher and catcher can change the flow of an inning, even a small disagreement can feel much bigger than it really is. And when Dave Roberts noticed it too, the moment became impossible to ignore. Because whenever the Dodgers' biggest star and one of the team's young players seem to be on different pages, fans immediately start asking the same question. Was this just a normal baseball moment, or is there something deeper going on? Before we go further, make sure you subscribe to Baseball Pulse for more Dodgers drama, MLB stories, and the biggest moments around Shohei Ohtani. This is the kind of baseball content that can change in a single pitch, a single inning, or even a single conversation on the mound. And today's story is exactly that kind of story. Shohei Ohtani is not just any pitcher. He is one of the most unique players the game has ever seen. He carries a level of pressure that almost nobody else in baseball has to deal with. Every time he steps on the mound, there are expectations attached to his name. Every pitch is watched, every decision is analyzed, and every small interaction becomes a headline. That is the reality of being Ohtani. And Dalton Rushing, as a young catcher still learning the rhythm of working with a player like him, is also carrying his own pressure. Catching is already a difficult job. Catching for a superstar like Ohtani makes it even more demanding. That is why this moment matters. It does not necessarily mean there was a serious problem. In fact, the reports suggest the opposite. Dave Roberts did not treat it like a crisis. But in baseball, chemistry is everything. A pitcher and catcher have to trust each other completely. They have to know when to challenge, when to adjust, and when to stay calm under pressure. If even one pitch feels off, the entire inning can start to slip away. That is why these small on-field conversations often reveal so much about a team's process. What makes this situation so interesting is that Ohtani is still working his way back into the demanding role of a two-way player. That means he is not just focused on hitting, he is also adjusting to the full mental and physical responsibility of pitching at the highest level. That is not easy for anyone. It requires timing, communication, and complete focus. And when a young catcher like Dalton Rushing is involved, the learning curve becomes even steeper. He is still figuring out how to handle the speed, the pressure, and the complexity of working with one of baseball's most unique pitchers. So when fans saw that brief moment on the mound, it naturally raised questions. Was Ohtani unhappy with the pitch selection? Was Rushing trying to guide the situation one way, while Ohtani had a different idea? Or was it simply a normal competitive disagreement that happened in the middle of a tense game? Those are the kinds of details that can look dramatic on camera, even when the reality behind them is much calmer. Sometimes what looks like tension is really just two teammates trying to get on the same page, and that is probably why Dave Roberts' response is so important. If the manager stepped in but did not make it into a bigger issue, that tells us a lot. It suggests that the team understands this is part of the learning process. Young catchers and elite pitchers do not build chemistry instantly. They build it through repetition, communication, and trust. One awkward moment does not mean the partnership is broken. Sometimes it means they are still in the middle of figuring each other out. For Dodgers fans, that should actually be reassuring, because the biggest takeaway here is not drama, it is growth. It is the reality that a superstar like Ohtani and a developing catcher like Rushing are both trying to handle enormous expectations while keeping the team moving forward. And in baseball, those little adjustments often lead to stronger chemistry later on. A moment like this can become a lesson, not a problem. It can become the kind of thing that helps both players improve their understanding of each other the next time they are on the field together. Still, the question remains, was this simply a normal disagreement between pitcher and catcher, the kind that happens all the time in professional baseball? Or was it a sign that these two still have more chemistry to build before everything starts clicking the way the Dodgers want it to. That uncertainty is exactly what makes the story so interesting, because when Shohei Ohtani is involved, even the smallest moment becomes part of a much bigger conversation. And that is why fans will keep watching. Not just for the highlights, but for the details. Not just for the home runs and strikeouts, but for the body language, the conversations, and the chemistry that happens between the lines. But here's where things could get really interesting for the Dodgers. If Shohei Ohtani and Dalton Rushing can turn this small moment into better communication, it could actually become a positive development for the team, because when the season reaches its biggest moments, the Dodgers won't just need talent, they'll need trust. And trust between a pitcher and catcher doesn't appear overnight. It comes from moments exactly like this: a different pitch call, a quick conversation, a small adjustment, then the next pitch. That's how chemistry grows, and for Rushing, these moments are part of his development. He's getting the chance to work with one of the most talented and closely watched players in baseball. Every game is another lesson. Every inning gives him more information about how Ohtani thinks and how he wants to attack hitters. For Ohtani, it's also about building confidence in the people around him. He doesn't have to agree with every decision. Rushing doesn't either. What matters is that they can communicate, make a decision, and move forward together. That's what championship teams do. So while social media may turn a few seconds on the mound into a huge controversy, the reality could be much simpler. Believer. Two teammates. One competitive moment and a chance to become better. But now, every time Ohtani takes the mound with Rushing behind the plate, fans are going to be watching closely. Will their communication look smoother? Will the chemistry continue to grow? Or will another moment spark even more questions? That's what makes this story worth following. Because sometimes the biggest baseball stories don't begin with a home run. Sometimes they begin with one conversation on the mound. And this one could be just the beginning.